Welcome to If I Only Had 10 Minutes. I'm Jane Randall, one of the partners in Comms Collective, and I'm here with Laurie Schalow. Laurie, hello.
Hi, good to see you, Jane.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Laurie Schalow. I'm the Chief Corporate Affairs and Food Safety Officer at Chipotle. I've been here for a little over 8 years, coming up on 9 years, and I oversee the typical communications functions, public affairs, internal, external comms, sustainability, government affairs. But I also have food safety, quality assurance, and our customer service, and a couple of other functional areas.
So you had the honor of being the first client of Comms Collective, which was very exciting for us. So I wanted to ask you, when do you think a fractional hire, a fractional communicator can be more effective than a full-time hire?
Yeah, sure. First, I didn't realize we were the first client until a couple months ago when you told me that. And I guess maybe I'll just explain what we used it for, and then I can help, answer that question. It was a situation where our CEO had been invited to give the commencement speech at his alma mater, and we did not have that skill set in-house. So we didn't have someone who had written a commencement speech. I wanted, someone who was also in tune with what was trending, what was happening, and someone who had expertise there that we just didn't have. So I came to you because you had just started this new business, and I had heard about it on one of our calls, and I thought, well, I'm going to reach out. And you provided me with a couple of different options, and we found a great solution that we worked with that helped us immensely for the speech, and it was a great experience. So, to answer the question, I think that it can fill a gap, right? So when on your team, whether it's a short-term gap of someone taking a leave of absence, maternity leave or something like that, or it's just a new area of the business or something that has happened that you need someone who has some expertise, it's a great solution for something like that.
Right. We think so, so thank you. What keeps you up at night?
Uh, as a communications leader of a restaurant company with 4,000 restaurants, 130,000 employees, we serve millions of people every day, fresh food. You can guess it's food safety and crisis and issues that happen just naturally in the course of our business. So I think it's really just the unknown. You wake up every day, what's happening in social, what's happening in general, mainstream news. How does it impact your business? Some things are directly impacting you that happen in your business, or it's external factors that, right or wrong, good or bad, you're brought into, and how you deal with those. So I think that's what keeps me up mostly, is just the unknown.
So you're not franchised?
No, we own and operate all of our restaurants here in the US and North America and Europe. And we do have a couple of franchise partners in other parts of the business, about to open in Mexico and in Asia. And we currently have partners in the Middle East.
But it's interesting. I'm not sure which is easier. I don't think either, but wholly owned with all your own employees, like that's a lot.
Pros and cons for sure, yes.
Right.
But the great news is we have the ability to communicate to those 130,000 employees, provide great career, advancement opportunities, and all that messaging. So as a communicator, it's a really good thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. So interesting. I really didn't know that. So when do you think communicators need to push back harder than they usually do?
Yeah, I think, especially if you're a chief communications officer, chief public affairs officer, whatever your role might be, if you've earned that seat and you're lucky enough to report to the CEO or the president, I think that we have a duty to be a truth teller. And so sometimes we might sit quietly or go along with whatever is being said, but I think it is our job to, coming from a place of fact or sentiment, have your data with you, understanding how messaging and actions might be portrayed across all different audiences, but share that. So I do think that it is our job to speak up, make sure we are sharing. Doesn't mean we have to go in this direction, but make sure we're sharing across all audiences how something might be perceived, if an action is taken or communication is done.
I mean, that's right. And it can be hard. We've all sat in those rooms, right, where that it's not going in the direction that it should. And you make the call whether this is the time you're gonna, fall on the sword or not. But it's all
yeah, and
call.
And typically it may not be the popular,
Right.
opinion or message, but like I said, I do think it is, in this role, that's the job that we play. And I think that what you do with that messaging, like, look,
Right.
it's, have the conversation, and then whatever decision is made, you all lock arms and you go forth with it. But at
Right.
least you've shared and understand any repercussions that might come.
Right. Exactly. You've done your job. You've said your piece, and then whatever
Yep.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's great. Talk about AI for a minute. I'm not, and how I'm sure it's very integrated into your business in general, but integrated into the comm space, where do you draw the line between AI as a helpful assistant and AI as a risk to your voice or brand? And I would actually say you can answer this either as a human, or as a company, or both, right? Because I think it's sort of a both end.
Yeah, I think that whether from a business perspective or in as a consumer of
Yeah.
media and communications in life, messaging that is targeted towards us, you need to be aware of the potential for AI generated content to be there.
Hmm.
And I don't don't believe everything you see online. Like, that seems very cliche, but I think today, especially with AI generated information, as a consumer, I always kind of second guess, like,
Yeah.
okay, is that real? Do we
Yep.
really, like, sometimes things look odd or look off, or sound off. So you have to do your homework and you do that. And then from a business perspective, it brings fake news to a whole new level, right? I mean, there
Right.
is so much AI generated
Yeah.
news that's happening, and reporters are using AI to generate news stories. And sometimes it's factual, but sometimes it's just not.
Right.
AI is grabbing everything it sees. So if there's false information on there, if it's pulling from places like Wikipedia,
Right.
it may or may not, if it's crowdsourced information, it may or may not be true.
Right.
So I think that, that's where we have to make sure as communicators, we have that lens and we're doing our homework, and also staying on our toes to make sure we're correcting misinformation if it's about your brand that
Right.
could impact your brand sentiment or your perceptions with consumers.
Which is always hard, right? I'm just out of curiosity.
Mhm.
Do you, how do you sort of in the morning or whatever determine what it is that is, true?
Well, we spend a lot of time, and we do have a social listening tool that we leverage, that's monitoring what's being said, across our brands, and all kinds of keywords that we're looking at. And when we see misinformation, we quick or questionable, we
Yeah.
quickly flag it. We'll dig in a little bit, and we do spend a lot of time asking for corrections,
Yeah.
asking for clarifications, especially on headlines with clickbait.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get why you wrote that. It's not
Right.
really true. And then you have to have that back and forth with the media or whoever wrote the story. So, we do have to do a lot of monitoring, and, you have to make sure that you're staying on top of all that, unfortunately. And like I said, it's not always bad intentioned. It's just
Sure.
sometimes it was, you know, generated and then it's just quickly produced because, newsrooms are so short staffed these days. But
Right.
that's why, as our job as communicators, we have to make sure that we're staying on top of it.
Okay. I'm gonna have you last question, and then we'll go to our signature question. What is something that most people would be surprised to learn about you?
So I love when there's those icebreaker questions, because I always have a good one. So I'm actually one of 13 children.
Oh
It's
my.
his, mine, and ours. So there's four in my original family. My mom remarried my stepdad when I was in middle school, who had seven children, one set of twins who share my birthday. So three of us have the same birthday in June, which is always really
Oh
fun.
my God, that's crazy.
And then together they had two more. So I have two half sisters as well. So there's 13 of us, which makes for fun times at holidays and gatherings now that everybody's married and has kids. And so it's very fun.
I mean, I can't imagine for weddings, like just having family, and then how do you even have
Yeah.
room for anyone
You're
else?
already at 300 plus. Yeah.
I
Get
mean,
ready for, if you marry into our family, you're going to have a big wedding.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you say it with such a smile. I love that.
It's
Um,
fun.
well, okay, we're at the end. So here is the last question. If you had an extra 10 minutes in your day, what would you do?
You know, I, if I'm being honest, I probably would either sleep an extra 10 minutes or scroll on social media an extra 10 minutes. If I was being intentional about those 10 minutes, I would try to connect with individuals. So reach out, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, current, former colleagues. Just, I feel like the day is so busy, it gets away from us. And with the different time zones we all work in,
Yep.
before I know it, weeks and months go by without, connecting with people. So I should be more intentional about connecting with individuals during that time.
I think that's great. I don't know about you. We talk all day long. So when somebody calls you at night, you're like, really don't feel like talking now. But you have to sort of make and then once you talk, you're fine and it's happy. But
Right.
when you talk for a living, it's a little bit harder.
Absolutely. You're right.
Well, Laurie, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you, and hopefully you'll come back because I think there's lots more to talk about.
I'd love to. Thank you so much, Jane.